Seriously, just go back to 10 cubes. Make it easy.
No.
There is forgiveness.
No.
There's forgiveness in the 10 cube system. Right now, the 7 cube system.
It doesn't need to have forgiveness. This is Marvel Snap. We have Galactus players. You do not need forgiveness. Maybe symmetry. Make it an 8 cube rank. Then it makes sense. It is going to be a shorter episode today, so I'm just going to kind of semi-hop right into it. If you're ready, I'm ready.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready with the script that you gave me that had nothing.
Exactly, because it's improvised, because we always say, first off, welcome on in, everyone, to the Snap Back podcast. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. That hooligan over there, that's DefaultDan, who thinks he needs to be scripted, but he just has his own opinions, and we're going to let him express them here again, because there's a couple of things to talk about in this condensed version of the Snap Back podcast. We have a lot of great entertainment going on DefaultDan's channel tonight. So I promise you, come the Thursday night / Friday morning episode, whatever it ends up being typically for us, we will go into a lot more detail, having more exposure to High Evolutionary, who from the time of our recording is going to be dropping into the game relatively soon. But I want to talk about High Evolutionary, and there's two other things I do want to touch on. One over the weekend and one that literally just got announced just a short couple minutes ago. So we're going to let's like as live reaction as it could potentially be. Okay. Like I don't even know if he knows anything about what this is. So that's great.
I'm going to try to track something down.
You could try everything you can, but this is where we're going to now have it be informative to not just the audience, but also to the co-host. So I think that'll be that'll be interesting to see how you spin this one. So that's what we do, because as always, professional streamers and podcasters and creators. All right. So first off, let's talk about the surprise kind of sort of location that we had this past weekend, the unannounced from the game location of Fogwells Gym. Now, this was not in any of the patch notes. This was not in the announcement video with the new locations. They just had this one go out there, and they did it for their 5-year anniversary for Second Dinner as a way to celebrate. They dropped a location in the game that for 24 hours only, this location was in full force, and it is now in the status of ultra rare. So it'll only pop up again as commonly as Ego pops up into the game. But it's both players get double boosters this game. And it was such a nice, it was a breath of fresh air, because yes, we had some uncertainty because it was kind of data mined, but it was never confirmed. Like they just kind of let it happen. And then the community, at least to what it looks like to me, the community went bonkers in happiness. Like all I saw was positive feedback. I saw it in the creator group for the Marvel Snap Discord. I saw it on Twitter. I saw it on Reddit. Like everybody was all about this location because of two reasons is kind of what it all boiled down to for me. Number one, the boosters, of course. Duh. I mean, free boosters are free boosters. You're going to play those characters that you maybe never get a chance to play because you never get to upgrade them because you never have enough boosters. Now you have an incentive. There's that portion. And then the other portion that I saw a lot of was, oh, good. It's a location that doesn't ruin my gameplay. So it was this weird mix of like, oh, good. It's not going to be another Krakoa or Milano where I'm completely restricted on a certain amount of time. It's just let me play my game. Oh, and here's a prize at the same time. It's like hitting Nova Roma. How did you feel about this location over the weekend?
I mean, so you didn't want to troll everybody and just bring in Storm and Rhino and Magic and just be like, oh, I know you want that location, but
I may have had to storm it a couple of times out of competition preparing for this weekend. For Friday's tournament, but I may have had to, and I felt guilty about it because it's like, oh, I want the boosters too, and now I'm just an asshole. Like,
the thing about it was when it first got kind of data mined and leaked out there, it was before April Fools, because a lot of people were seeing this. They were like, oh, this is just April Fool's joke. They're going to, say it's coming and then it's not going to come. Right. Instead, we had the whole pack to buy a rock,
Did you get a rock?
In the game.
I got a rock.
I got to rock. Yeah. I mean, luckily they had the little competition, which was fun around the rocks and stuff. But
it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, like as far as the location, I honestly didn't get to play on it as much as I would have loved to. Again, it was over the weekend, had a lot going on. We went to Orlando with family and friends, but it was one of those things. I do like the location. I kind of hope that they see how this helped the community, and then maybe they do this once a month. Like I know it's kind of would seem weird to do that, but honestly, like first of the month, end of the month, whatever. Like I think they could make this a hot location more often. Like what does boosters do for them? It actually helps them because it makes people need credits to upgrade their people. If you don't have credits, then you use your gold on credits and spend money to get gold, blah, 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 blah. So I think all in all, it's a great location. It helps them out. And I think that that's the one kind of, I would say, bummer is I would have loved this to have been 48 hours like hot locations used to be.
The good old days.
And I hope it'll come back. Yeah, I hope it'll definitely come back soon because I do agree with you. I think that this was kind of the little bit of lift that the community needed. Not to say we've gotten a lot of bad stuff over the last week or two, but definitely over the last 2 months, right? There've been ups and downs, and this is definitely one of the ups.
I agree. I think it was very healthy, and it's funny because we also then kind of go back just a couple of days prior, like go back to the prior weekend when they started releasing the booster bundles. And then you look in comparison to how people react to the exact same currency in two very different ways. With the booster bundles, everybody is just straight up like, this is pointless and stupid. And why would you use your gold on boosters? And then great counterpoints are put out there by the community saying this is a lot more geared towards the free-to-play community that are looking for very specific pieces to boost up, to be able to move up in the collection track, to unlock more things, because they can only play so much and they can only upgrade so much. Even if they get credits. So I could understand that portion to it. But then the second you give people free anything, even if it's 6 boosters a game for a character that you might use again, people just lost their minds in happiness. And I agree with you 100%. Second dinner, if you are listening to this in any way, shape, or form, you want to get people to play on the weekend, that's how you do it. You say, even just one weekend a month, on one Sunday, hey, it's Fogwell Sunday. Here we go. Like, people will absolutely go crazy for it. I would love to see this come back again. Not even for my own self, but because of this nice little oomph, that we all got as a community. And if they timed it on the last weekend of the month also, when so many people are burnt out, and they're just like, okay, I'm going to take 2 days off, wait for the new season, save up all my daily missions and just kind of cash in on Tuesday. Like, no, give them a reason to play on that final weekend. Fogwells Gym will go over very, very, very well.
Yeah. I would say the only downside, right? Because there is one downside to the location is the way people were, quote unquote, taking advantage of it. And it's not that people were taking advantage of it. I want to make sure it doesn't come across like that. What I didn't enjoy was I saw a lot of people posting out there to say, okay, this is how you do this location. You bring in Watu, check and see if it has it. If not, leave, right? You bring in these cards and you go up to turn 6 or 7 to make sure that you get, or 5 or 6 or whatever, to make sure you get your boosters, and then just whatever happens. Like, people weren't playing, like there was some people weren't actually playing the game. They were just like, let me load up a deck with cards that I want boosters for. Let me throw Watu in there and just like give free cubes everywhere. And I guess when you're an infinite, whatever, it doesn't matter, which a lot of these people were. Yeah. But it was definitely one of those, like, I do feel like that also slightly hurt some of the community, because there were people trying to play. And then when somebody's like, turn 1, oh, they left. And you're like, well, that was a waste of some of my time. You know what I mean? Like, it's a free cube, but I don't know. That's the only kind of downside I saw to this location. It's not a huge downside, but I do kind of felt like, come on, guys, just play. I agree.
If you're playing the game at infinite to farm boosters, you're not playing the game with the right intent. I'll agree with you. I still don't think that it was as in high quantity or detriment that it would take away from anything that we also said beforehand. I really do think it is a very positive location, and I would love to see it back again. Let's move on, though. Let's move forward to the announcement that was posted on Twitter just recently in regards to Twitch Rivals. Have you seen this yet? Okay. This is what we're maybe blindsiding you with.
You said something right before we jumped on air, and it said Twitch Rivals, but I have not seen what it is.
So, do you know what Twitch Rivals is?
I do, but you can definitely let everybody else know. That's out there.
The shortened version of it is a Twitch channel that has competitions in regards to very specific games, and they have content creators go up against other content creators. That's the layman's term version of what Twitch Rivals is. And it is a big deal. This is a channel that has a large following, and it has like 2 million, I want to say it is, total followers. Like, it is a large channel just overall. Marvel Snap is now going to be one of the next ones next Wednesday, May 31st at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so 5 p.m. Eastern. And it has a very interesting list of names because not all of them are Marvel Snap creators. And I don't know if that was intentional or not. But basically, they're all competing for a $10,000 prize in teams. So if you go to the Twitch Rivals page, which is, twitch.tv/Twitch Rivals, you can see the full overview of how it breaks down, how the competition's going to go, the brackets, etc. And there are, of course, some big obvious names that jump out at you. For example, Jeff Hoagland, you can see in there. Nina is Noob, Dexter, Dara. Those are for me, the big ones that jump out. That it's like, okay, there are some really, big names here, but then there are some Magic focused names and just card gamers as well. Shady, for example, in there too. So it's a nice mix.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing for a demonstration of Marvel Snap. Is that weird to think, or like?
So they did this, but they did this a month ago, 2 months ago, not Twitch Rivals, but we had another tournament that was very similar in the nature because they had quite a few names from other games playing. So it was like Hearthstone people, Snap
another
people,
tournament.
Magic people. Yeah, and I can't. It's not that I'm purposely not saying the name. I just literally can't think of the name of the tournament that had it. And I thought it was okay. My concern is potentially like when you bring in these names, right? Part of it's to make sure you're drawing a crowd. Like there's some of these people like Jim. Jim is a huge Magic player. I've followed him for a long time in the opens and things like that. And he's really good at Magic. I don't think I've ever seen him play Snap. He may play Snap, right? Like Brian Kibler is another one of those that huge in Magic, like one of the old OGs of Magic, played Snap for a while. I feel like he sent a message out the other day that said he hadn't played in like a month or two.
Right.
But he was also kind of within some of that stuff. So like it is interesting in who they selected. There's a few names on here I'm surprised aren't on there. In the Magic world, you have like Krim, who is actually also part of the creator program.
Yeah.
Funny enough. And he's not on this list. And I would have imagined he would have made this list, seeing like Hoagland and Jim and those guys. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it, but I do wonder who's going to come out on top. Is it going to be Dara? Is it going to be Dexter? Is it going to be Jeff? These guys who play Magic all day long, all the time, or not Magic, sorry, Snap all day long, all the time. Or are we going to get some of these people that they're very intelligent. They play card games. They know how things work, and they can put some decks together that, end up taking it down.
Yeah. I mean, cause there's not just a lot of eyes, but there's a large amount of, there's a large cash prize for these competitors on top of it as well. And when I think about it for Marvel Snap, and I think about it for the audience and what they get out of this, Twitch Rivals is a very large platform. for this game. In the streaming community, in the content creation community, this is a large opportunity. And I hope that it's broadcast right. And what I mean by that is I hope that it's commentators that understand the game. I hope that it's people that are going to be a part of the broadcast that are going to be able to showcase this game to its fullest potential. And at the same time, you know, from a personal point of view, I'm curious how they broadcast it. I'm curious, do they show somebody's screen? Do they show both players' screens? Do they show both players' hands? Like how they create a tournament for broadcast, because this is a large professional platform. And as a game that's trying to figure out its own esports scene, this is a big audience to kind of say, here we go, this is what the game is. And obviously, if they're doing this, they've talked with Second Dinner. Second Dinner's involved. They're retweeting it. They're posting about it. They're saying, hey, this is a big deal. We wanted this to happen. You know, they've alluded to the fact that they would love to get Twitch drops, for example, for Marvel Snap in the future. There are things that they'd like to work towards with Twitch. So this could be that first step in that direction, too, of getting an even larger audience for this game. And I'm excited to be able to keep an eye on this and watch this, because it's going to be going on before our Snap.fan Wednesday night snap. So it'll be good to kind of take a look at what happens there and see how does the community that came from Marvel Snap enjoy this broadcast. And at the same time, the newcomers who are coming to the game, how are they perceiving this game because of how it's being presented by Twitch rivals? So I'm very excited to see how this is all put together.
Yeah, I mean, the other side of this is, again, depending on how they do this, but in a lot of these Twitch rivals, like they fly people out and they have a huge tournament area for people. Now, again,
true.
This could be a different type of game, so I don't know exactly how they'll do it. It'd be interesting to hear from Nina or, you know, Dara, one of these guys, like, hey, you know, if they're talking about exactly, you know, how they're doing it. But yeah, I think it'll be really interesting, and it'll be kind of the first, right? Like, not to say nobody's done any of the big tournaments, right? We've done the Snap Opens, we've had Snap Clash, we've had the invitationals on all the different things. There's the big invitational event that's going on Friday with Hannah and them. Like, there's a lot of things that have happened, but I feel like this is that first quote unquote legitimate tournament scene for Second Dinner to be like, look, we're going above and beyond just a couple streamers hosting a tournament on a Twitch site, right? How does this take off? Do they get 2,000 people watching? Do they get, you know, 10,000 people watching? And is this something that can drive that esports out there? So yeah, I'm excited to see what it's going to look like, how it's going to, you know, end up, because yeah, they picked a lot of really, really big people that draw big crowds, and, you know, from all different games, and hopefully it shoots it up.
Yeah, I hope so too. I do think it's going to be a positive thing overall, but I mean, I'll be watching, and I'll be more than glad to comment on it in 3 podcasts from now, from when we have that reaction. Last thing I want to talk about tonight, though, is we are on the cusp. We're on the cusp of the next big bad finally dropping into the game. So by the time most of you are listening to this, he's here. High Evolutionary. And for me personally, I spent all morning working on, you know, finalizing the decks that I wanted to broadcast, finalizing the lists, the video, like editing, like the whole routine. I spent all day head first into High Evolutionary, as weird of a sentence as that is. And I now, after spending like that much time just theory crafting and understanding the deck and seeing what's going to happen here, I have to say the biggest surprise when theory crafting that I came across when looking at all the different types of constructions that I was working, I made 15 decks. Like, I was not messing around. My biggest surprise was how many times I wanted to play Shocker. And it's been a conversation piece that Shocker is the one that people just kind of say, oh, the cost reduction is just a little, the leftmost card in your hand is -1 cost. Oh, okay, whatever. Sure. We're just going to ignore it. And more decks, I ended up realizing, you know what? I'm playing a lot of low costs here that I'm going to get out in Multitude. To have cards move over in my hand is actually going to be pretty easy. So I ended up using him a lot more. But I do think there are two big pools of people that will enjoy High Evolutionary. There will be the brand new players who are using their collector's tokens for the very first time and don't have access to Wasp yet because they're working through Series 3. And then there's literally everybody else who has Wasp, and it's a completely different deck with and without Wasp.
Yeah. So I'm going to let you continue with where you're going with High Evolutionary, because I'm getting them. So here's the thing.
Too, of course.
I've seen all of the Twitter polls and all of the stuff. I mean, like Bootman had one that had thousands of people that that filled it out. And it was just like 70 to 80% of people said, yes, I'm getting him. So I have a concern about him and the fact that there are cards like Luke Cage that stop him from doing what he's going to do. And yes, I get it. Like, right. People are like, oh, well, you just run Enchantress or you just run Rogue or whatever. But I mean, stick him behind a Cosmo. What are you going to do? So I'm definitely one of those, like, I'm excited about him. I'm excited to play him, but I'm a little worried, a little concerned that like everybody knows that everybody's going to have him and everybody's going to play Luke Cage. And it's just going to be very interesting to see the first 48 hours to 4 or 5 days and see if the hype grows or dies down or the frustration just because yet another thing. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing, that I took out of it, because I had that a very similar concern, which was you look at these cards and the first thing that you realize is, okay, Wasp is the negative affliction. Got it. Cyclops has a negative affliction. Okay. Thing has a negative affliction. Abomination benefits off of negative affliction. If that's the line you go, everything you said is validated, because it is the easiest, most obvious synergy of what this deck does, which is to benefit off of negative affliction. On the other end of it, the slept on synergy is definitely the saving energy. That line is in there. It's a little harder.
The sunspot.
Yeah, exactly. It's in there. There are definite ways. I had a lot of fun with that too. And also just slightly, even if you capitalize on it only 2 turns, there's a lot that can come from even just that amount. Like when you think of like a Silver Surfer deck, you always end up with energy that you didn't use on turn 1, 2, or 4. So if 2 of them you have not everything fully used, you're in the clear and you're really starting to take advantage of those synergies. There were a lot of ways that I ended up repurposing pieces of these that I didn't think were going to fit together. And I agree with you that negative affliction with, yes, Luke Cage and all the counters and everybody's all, we've been talking about it. Everybody's going to be running Luke Cage, as most people should, at least for the first 48 hours. Because once we kind of get over that hump of everyone's just trying everything, but they want to still attempt to win. So they're not going to, forget about Luke Cage. But once that kind of settles in and then we start finding, okay, this trio, this group of 4 with this card, and we start finding more and more of those decks that everybody just copies and pastes from snap.fan and says, this is the good deck. Like once we get to that phase, that's when the rest of the experimenting is going to end up being a lot more prevalent, where we can actually say, ooh, this is fun. Like one of the decks I'm most excited for, as stupid as it is I have a Cerebro 4 deck. I desperately want to try with this. And it's a Destroy Cerebro 4. And I love how the lines look. I just hope it plays anywhere close to what I'm hoping it'll do. But it looks really, really cool. And there's a bunch of random little pieces like that I wasn't expecting. A lot of synergies in a lot of different archetypes I wasn't expecting either. I got it into discard. I got it into Cerebro. I got it into bounce. I got it into I found different ways to make every single one of these new cards work. And I think people are just hung up too much on the affliction line.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's where, like, I agree with you. And I think that that's where I hope it doesn't just become like, Wednesday morning, all you see on Twitter is like, oh, High Evolutionary is so bad. I wish I would have bought him because everybody's playing Luke Cage, right? Like, it's going to happen. There's going to be people that just like to complain. But yeah, I mean, like the energy lines is very interesting. I also feel like, again, I know Doom Wave and all of that, the reason why Wave got killed was because of those, but I honestly think they knew it would happen here. Like, if you think about the fact of what She-Hulk was doing with Wave and all of that, and now you're going to be able to be like, oh yeah, by the way, here's a couple more cards that bonus off of that. It would have been insane for what you could have dropped on turn 6 or 5 or 4 or whatever when you start saving up a bunch of energy and you're using Wave. So yeah, I definitely am in that same boat of like, I know he's going to be good. He's a big bad. Even though Kang is the worst of the big bads, he is still good. He still has his place. He can still do a lot of stuff. And I think that High Evolutionary, even if Luke Cage, and he will have a resurgence for the next X weeks, he'll eventually die off and these decks will come back. It's just like Hazmat. Hazmat's always been there. And there'll be a week where Hazmat is everywhere. And if you don't have Luke Cage, you'll lose. But then she kind of just goes away. And I think that that's kind of how this deck, I think, will have ebbs and flows, whether it's people just figuring out new ways to play him. And I think that that's the thing I like the most. I like the fact that it's not trapped in one play pattern, which is how I feel Galactus is. Like, Thanos has always been a really good big bad because he has multiple play patterns. And I feel like High Evolutionary has the same thing. He has multiple play patterns. So.
I agree. Yeah. And after spending as many hours as I did today, I was very worried that there really were only 2 lines, which was just the negative affliction line and the energy save line. And that was it. And more and more and more, I realized, wow, there's a lot you can do with this, because you only need like 2. You need High Evolutionary and then 2 other cards. So it's 25% of your deck. But with the right pairings, I mean, it's very versatile. And even at the sacrifice of High Evolutionary, in a way, kind of being a dead card in most of the decks, to be completely honest, even at that sacrifice. Yeah, he's a 4/4, but he's not doing anything on the battlefield. It's everybody else is doing it. So if you draw him, he's either, there's very few decks where I have something beneficial coming from him, just because there's only so much that he can do at his stat line, going into the final 3 turns of the game. So it's a little, it sucks that he got brought down from 4/7 to 4/4. I get it. It was probably the right thing to do. Let's be honest here. But I do think that people are very much
see him going back to a 4/5. I could see him going back to a 4/5 after a week or 2 of play testing and seeing that he never gets played, right?
Yeah, they see so many people have him in the deck, but then what's the win rate when played? And that's something we'll be able to track on Snap.fan also, is how often is he actually drawn and how much is he actually being played? After a week, it's going to be, if I had to guess number of times drawn versus number of times played already right now, it's going to be like a 30% drop in numbers, because you're very likely to draw it and very unlikely to play it. So I kind of, I kind of equate it like America Chavez in that sense, where most of the time you're not really needing it. It's just for other purposes, granted, nowhere near close to as strong, but you get the idea in comparison there. I think that there is a big, like, let me reword it like this. When you look at the 7 cards here, if you had to pick 2 of them that you say would probably be the most flexible for any deck, just overalling, where would you target people to start theory crafting around first for the 7 evolved cards?
So if I'm looking at the 7 evolved cards, the first one, that for any deck, I think Misty Knight is a good one, right? When you end your turn, unspend energy, give another friendly card +1.
Wow.
So it's not like a Cerebro deck is going to be terrible in. But if you think about it, right? Like Misty Knight's a good turn 1. And if you go into turn 2, so let's say you're playing, you know, Nebula in your deck, or you're playing, I don't know, Sunspot or whatever, right? Because you're doing a save your energy deck. So let's just say Sunspot. Yeah. Misty Knight turn 1, turn 2, Sunspot pass turn. Now Sunspot's going to get his +1 from the energy you didn't spend plus a +1 from Misty Knight. So I'm not saying it's going to be for every deck, but it's definitely one of those that on those turns, like you mentioned, turn 4, you played your 3-drop and passed. Now Misty Knight gets to give a +1 somewhere. You know, it is random, so it's a little bit harder, but I definitely think Misty Knight is a easy add if you're looking for a 1-drop. You know, it's hard to say that now because we have so many good 1-drops, but she's not terrible. And then I don't know. I mean, like it's hard because like Hulk is definitely one of those cards where he just always felt bland as a 6/12. Like, not to say 6/12 is not powerful, but there's so many things you can do on turn 6. But now, I mean, if you have 2 turns that you didn't spend something, he's as big as a destroyer, but doesn't hurt. He's bigger than a destroyer and doesn't hurt you. So, I mean, I steer away from the -1, the afflicted kind of stuff. Like they're so good. Like Wasp is really good, right? On reveal, afflict 2 random cards here with -1. Like that's going to be crazy, but it definitely in the first week or 2, I just don't think that's going to be happening much with so many Luke Cages. So I just have to, I have a feeling you're going to see Luke Cage in 50% of your games starting tonight.
Right. And as safe as that is, I think that it also then opens up a very interesting conversation about Luke Cage with all of these decks, which is if you play Luke Cage and you're trying to protect it properly, you know, sure, you're going to put it behind a Cosmo, or you're going to put it behind an Invisible Woman and then have it go towards the end, maybe potentially, but then you risk the Abomination play, or maybe you protect it somehow, some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I still don't think, you know, after looking at all the options and combinations, I really don't think it's going to matter too much. I think, and the biggest reason is because Enchantress is not going to be the problem. It's going to be Rogue. More people are going to lean towards Rogue because it's cheaper and because then it protects your side, and you're not going to want to undo anything else that's on that lane because there are a lot of other ongoing synergies that work well with these decks. So I don't think Enchantress is actually going to end up making a huge rise. They're going to start with Enchantress because she's the most recent, more popular, sexy pick right now. But when you realize how much energy you run out of real quickly, people will start switching more and more to Rogue.
I think the only downside to Rogue is depending on what deck you're going against, right? Because there's a potential that if they're playing Luke Cage and maybe they're not playing High Evolutionary, right? Then they may be playing a Hazmat deck. They may be playing something else, right? And so there are other cards that Rogue could potentially hit in that lane, which is concerning. But I would agree with you. I think it's always easier to have 3 energy on turn 6 to play 2 3-drops than to have 4 energy, right? And because I think another card that's going to be a sleeper is Leech, because I think a lot of people, they're going to wait and they're going to play their Luke Cage on the last turn. They're going to let things happen potentially,
which is such a hard because move. No, don't do that. No.
I'm saying it's difficult because a lot of these cards don't care about the end of the game. They want the afflictions now to get bonuses or do things. But I'm just saying, like, there's going to be people that kind of wait around for Leech. And I have a feeling that Leech is going to get some people where he drops down on 5. Like, I still think Lockjaw is fine in this deck. Throw Lockjaw in this deck. So when you get your high Evo, you can throw him into Lockjaw and get something else back. But
no,
I think that's where Leech can fit in some of these decks as well to try to get rid of potentially like, hey, if you want to play your Luke Cage, you got to play him early and give me some time to maybe steal that with Rogue or Enchantress or whatever.
Right. So, because I was thinking about that with Luke Cage, like what is the ideal time now to play Luke Cage? Because forever it was turn 6. It was to wait to the very end, and then you have the big swarm of power, and then it's magical. And then I was thinking about it, like, you don't want to wait till turn 6 because then they could potentially drop down that A-bomb even earlier because all the negative affliction is out there. But if you drop it too early, you increase the amount of risk for, you know, having it undone. And the best answer I can come up with is if you are going to play Luke Cage, drop Luke Cage on turn 4. That is the ideal optimal turn to play him down. Because number one, they have to try to counter it, and they only have really one turn to do it that'll be effective, which would only be turn 5. And turn 5 on many of these decks is really critical. So if you as an opponent have a Luke Cage, wait till turn 4. The other thing I'll pair with it is your best friend with Luke Cage is actually Lizard. Because if you play the two of them down together and it is an Enchantress, one of them's going to benefit, the other one won't. And then if it is a Rogue, you're actually stealing a potential location because you've got them both down. And maybe it takes that. If you don't want to play the Lizard, you can also go with armor on top of Luke Cage. So maybe it takes the armor. And guess what? It's the same thing because it hits both sides of the battlefield anyway. So it's a win-win scenario when you pair Luke Cage with one of those two cards from a defensive standpoint and wait till turn 4, which is why.
And you know what you do? On turn 6, you drop your Super Scroll. You're like, you can have my Luke Cage, but I'm getting him back. Sucker.
Yeah, exactly. I'll say pretty confidently though, like the turn 6 play of then knowing that maybe I can outdo that, you know, Luke Cage, and now it's dead, but now I got to go over the top. It completely messes with a lot of the high evo lines. And I do think that we're going to see a rise in a lot of high evolutionary decks, not necessarily the negative decks in the first week, the afflicted decks, as I'm calling them. But I do think we're going to see a ridiculous amount of high evolutionary, and we're going to see an even more ridiculous amount of Sarah control with and without high evolutionary, because I think both will be incredibly relevant because it all synergizes together and becomes its own counter. So it's going to be a really fun week, man. It's going to be a really fun week. I'm so excited for tomorrow. I'm streaming like all day long, minus like one thing maybe in the afternoon if it's going to get scheduled to happen. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But like outside of that, like I'm going to be streaming as long as I can tomorrow. I have all my decks already preloaded just to plop in high evo at the end of the night tonight, and then all right, here we go. Like I'm stupid excited.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where high evo is just one of those hyped cards, and for a reason. He is just like the big bads where he changes the way the game works, right? You have Galactus, you have Thanos, you have Kang, right? They bend the rules of the game, and this is what this does. It says, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you one card that allows you to potentially make 3, 4, 5 different decks, right? There's not many cards that have been able to do that. There's a lot of these cards where you bring them into the game, they maybe make you 2 decks. They maybe end up just being like a Nebula where you said, oh, I can just throw in any deck, but it doesn't necessarily create an archetype. Whereas High Evo is coming in and saying, hey, we're going to make Affliction relevant outside of Hazmat. We're going to make this saving energy more than just Sunspot plus She-Hulk, right? So it's really fun to see that we've got a card that's going to change that. And it's also fun to see that a lot of the community has been saving tokens, and we are going to see a lot of them, because I know one of the big complaints right now is card acquisition. It's the fact that we get a brand new card and nobody knows, should I spend my tokens on it or not? Because there's been so many people that you unlock, they look good, 3 days later, you're not playing them anymore. You know, and I don't think this is that. I think High Evolutionary is going to bring some stuff to the game. And yeah, it may be rough for Affliction for the first 48 hours, the first 5 days, but give it a week or two, and Affliction will be able to come back. And honestly, I'm still going to be trying it.
Oh,
we're
yeah,
gonna see what happens with it. So
100%. You're damn right. I'm trying it too. My phone is going to explode on me, and my wife might also, because there's just going to be so much testing over the next few days. Yeah. So I am very, very excited. And again, to all of our audio listeners, to all of you on YouTube, thank you for being understanding that this is a little bit of a shorter broadcast tonight, as we have another event that will be following on his channel right away with Marvel Scrap. And I mean, we have
hence the jersey.
Yes, the jersey. I mean, I just thought you liked being a zebra in your free time, you know. So
yeah, I gotta ref these matches. Some of these people, they get too much going.
Passionate, too rowdy, too aggressive,
too passionate, too rowdy.
Too
they
bald.
Start to scrap. I mean,
what happens? Are they
a little too much?
A little scrappy, if you will, scrappy dooby doo. You know, like gotcha.
So, yeah, we're gonna have some fun with it. We're gonna have some fun with it.
I'm looking forward to it. So, for those who do not know, once again, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. You can find me at twitch.tv/ItsGuestGaming, youtube.com/ItsGuestGaming, Twitter, ItsGuestGaming, Discord, ItsGuestGaming, Instagram, ItsGuestGaming, SmokeStinkle, ItsGuestGaming. You get the idea. And then DefaultDan decides to mess it up all the time because he has all the same handles like you do, you know, on stream. It's DefaultDan. And then Twitter comes along and it's DefaultDan Snaps, and you just...
Yeah.
Why make it more
difficult? It wouldn't let me have
DefaultDan
for some reason. It took it away from me.
Yeah, because you made the channel for DefaultDan, the video game, and you stole the thing, and you can't get it back now. It's time to go to the DefaultDan _ username to make it a little bit easier for everybody. But either way, you find him there, you find him on YouTube, and you can find him always here on the Snapback podcast, where you snap and we snap back. So DefaultDan, say goodbye to all these lovely people.
Y'all take it easy, and we'll talk later this week.
Yeah. Ooh, you've extended. Ooh, and you'll talk later this week.
A little bit extra.
You know, improv. You know, just you're feeling frisky tonight. You know, just
a little bit. I mean, I could have said, y'all take it easy and get involved, right? With High Evolutionary. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm so glad you did. I'm not gonna lie. You tried.